Hello and welcome to episode 167 of our SAP on Azure Video Podcast. Today is November 9th, and together with Robert and Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So last week we had SAP Teched. This week it was SAP Tech Connect and GitHub Universe. And next week it is Microsoft Ignite. So even if you have not attended any of these events, I think you can guess what one of the main topics was and is generative AI. I was lucky to attend SAP Teched in Bangalore, and it was a really cool show. And one of the key highlights from SAP was SAP Build Code. SAP Build Code helps developers to create code for the cloud application programming model. Similar like GitHub Copilot, it helps developers. Actually, already during Sapphire earlier this year, Jürgen Müller had already shown a cool sneak preview of CAP-GPT. So today, I'm happy to have David Kunz from SAP, the brain behind CAP-GPT, with us. But before we hand over to him, let's quickly take a look at some of the news from this week, and I'll make it very short. As mentioned, SAP Teched was last week, and like in the previous years, SAP has published a news guide, and it's really, well, yeah, you can see generative AI is the first topic. And for me, actually, it was really, really great to see that generative AI is not only used now for low code or for business applications, but it's really there to help developers. So SAP Build Code, I think, was one of the big announcements. And again, as mentioned in the intro, David will definitely talk about this and show us in more detail what it is. But so you can see, yeah, generative AI was a big thing. Another thing that was really cool was the Edge integration cell. So if you're CPI, a cloud platform integration or integration suite customer, or maybe not yet because you're still running PIPO, then the Edge integration cell, I think, can be something really, really cool that allows you to run your integration content also on premise. Then obviously BTP was one of the common themes across everything. Rise, grow, and rise was something. So it was really a lot of content published there by SAP. Actually, if you want to participate virtually in these scenarios, actually there was also a virtual Teched, but if you want to revisit the keynotes, so both the keynotes from Jürgen Müller and the business application keynote from Philipp Herzig, they are now live on YouTube. So I think both of them were really nice because SAP showed a lot of really cool new content. So I can definitely recommend to spend these 2 hours to watch these keynotes. Another thing that I almost forgot, the developer keynote, that was also actually nice. So DJ Adams and Thomas Young and a lot of colleagues there had an hour of time travel developer scenarios. So that's also a really nice keynote if you have time. Yeah, during Teched, we actually also published, so Microsoft also published a blog post, not as big as the this book of news or the news guide from SAP, but we highlight a few things where SAP and Microsoft, or where we from Microsoft have worked in the recent month on the SAP integration. So we had covered a lot of these topics already in previous episodes. So MV3, we had talked about the Azure Center for SAP Solutions. Then the whole monitor, the S stuff, the deployment automation framework, backup, monitoring. So a lot of things here. Teams integration, different integrations. What was there? The API management and OData. So a lot of cool things. So if you want to take a look at this, then also check out this blog post. Then one final thing that I quickly want to highlight: GitHub Universe. Thomas Domke, the CEO of GitHub, just opened the GitHub Universe conference yesterday. He talked about the huge adoption of GitHub Copilot. So I think he was saying that, I forgot actually the number, 1 million developers are now using and paying for GitHub Copilot. I don't know, 30,000 companies are using GitHub Copilot. And then he really introduced some cool additional functionalities, like a chat for for GitHub Copilot, where you can ask now, look, there's something wrong in my code, can you fix it? So it was a really nice keynote. Honestly, I only watched the keynote so far, but it was definitely interesting to see what GitHub is releasing in the next weeks. Yeah, so that was all from my side. So with this brief update, let's switch over to David. David, welcome. Maybe before we go into your topic, maybe you can quickly introduce yourself, what you do at SAP, and then I'm looking forward to seeing some of the demos that you've prepared.
Yeah, hey everybody, thanks for having me. My pleasure. So my name is David Kunz. So originally I'm a physicist. I studied at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, physics, and made my PhD in theoretical particle physics. And then I joined SAP about 8 years ago. And now I work as an architect for the Cloud Application Programming Model team in the Node.js runtime. So CAP is basically a framework for you to build applications on our business technology platform, and we try to make your life as easy as possible.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that you studied physics. I actually also studied physics. I didn't do a PhD. I stopped at the diploma, basically, but nice to see that you also studied physics. I was actually in the applied physics. So I was studying in Tübingen. Nice. So and there it was also really nice. But again, not the PhD, just the diploma. Cool. So you talked about CAP. Actually, also during Teched in Bangalore, I attended one very nice session by Hunzel. What's his
Daniel Hunzel.
Daniel Hunzel. Thank you. Yes. Where he also showed, where he gave a quick introduction on CAP, what it is, and it was. I think it is a really, really powerful framework. So maybe you can spend 1 or 2 minutes again on CAP. Why is it so powerful? What is it that you can do, and why is it so important also for SAP? Maybe.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I can just share my screen, and then I can show you our website, which is quite nice looking. So CAP. CAP stands for the Cloud Application Programming Model, and so if you want to build applications on our business technology platform, without a framework like CAP, you would need to take care of all the things. You would need to take care of the connectivity to the various platform services, all on the wire protocol, I would say, so HTTP, AMQP. You would need to take care of a lot of things, a lot of technical things, but in the end, you want to solve a business problem. So you want to focus on your domain. You don't want to deal with the technical details, and CAP is there to help. So we exist in 2 flavors, in Node.js and also in Java. So depending on the experience of your team or whatever programming language you prefer, you can use CAP and build applications. And we ship not only as the framework itself for those 2 programming languages, but also a lot of tools to make the life as easy as possible for you. And we also have this language called CDS, which stands for Core Data Services, and it lets you define your domain. So you can, in a declarative way, describe what entities you have, what relations you have, and later on you also will see a few examples of how that looks like. So you can, define a lot of things and get also a lot of things out of the box. Because if it's declarative, then you can also scan it, analyze it, and also provide some generic functionality to make this all work. And our biggest functionality, I would say, is the OData adapter, which basically means you get a full OData v4 service just by defining a few entities and relationships. So all generic features like filtering, searching, navigation, things like that, CRUD requests, all that basically works out of the box. And that's very nice. I think it's one of the easiest ways to build an OData server from scratch.
And actually, just to echo or re-emphasize that, when I was still at SAP and we just started with SAP Gateway, we had the SEGW transaction where you could expose or and create OData services basically, but it was always a lot of work. Especially, read was easy, but then to really do the create and the update. And then it started to, how do we implement all the filters, the dollar top, the dollar filter, the dollar select, and all these things. And when I do the same with CAP, it's absolutely amazing how easy it is. I mean, basically, you just define the data model, and then you basically say, yeah, OData equals true, and then you have the OData service. So that's really, really powerful. And you can filter, you can do CRUD operations. That's really, really impressive.
Yeah, it takes about a minute to have a running server.
Yeah. But then I think one of the challenges, and maybe that comes or brings us to the main topic, what I still find challenging, or what I found challenging, is if you're really new to this, if you're really getting started, then I think it can be a challenge to set up the project, find the right ordering, what goes where and stuff like that. And I think that's where you had a brilliant idea to simplify this.
Yes, exactly. So in December, it was actually quite a long time when I had this idea, how to use it. So in November 30th last year, ChatGPT was released, and it was just mind-blowing for me. It was such an interesting technology, and the first few nights I really had trouble sleeping. I'm not just saying that. I really had trouble sleeping because my mind was always racing on how to utilize this technology. It's just mind-blowing what it can do. So I also have here this link. I created a blog post. Sorry, that's that. So I created a blog post called "Having Fun with SAP CAP and ChatGPT," and so it was from December 8th. So this was roughly a bit more than a week after ChatGPT got released.
Yeah.
And I just opened it and I was like, okay, create a CDS model, and it could do it, right? It could do it. It worked only in very few cases, and there were a lot of bugs, but it could, in principle, do it. And this is a correct CDS model. And then I went further and I said, hey, can you compile this to SQL? And it would find the right command to do this, and would even, put the output out without running this program. It's really just generated text. It's not running any commands. It's not like a code interpreter or anything. This is just completely generated. And for me, this was just mind-blowing. And I also did things like enable draft books. And if you know CDS, that means this annotation is needed, and it could figure it out maybe after the third try or the fourth try, but it could figure it out in principle. And I was just amazed. And yeah, this blog post, by the way, was also written by ChatGPT, so I didn't write this myself. I generated, of course.
So all credits goes to ChatGPT.
All credits goes to ChatGPT. Yes. So absolutely blown away. I mean, what's written here, it even says it here, I'm absolutely blown away. That is correct, and I instructed ChatGPT to write this text, but it has written this text. So what came after was like, okay, so this nice proof of concept worked, like how can I utilize this? How can I make not a product out of it? It was way too early to think of even, shipping a product or something, but how can I utilize it? How can I make it even nicer? Because in the end, nobody wants to go on a website and type a few things and copy paste the code and plug it in your editor. So I was thinking, okay, what about I write a program which calls the GPT API, generates the necessary things, and just writes it on the file system and makes sure that it works. And then capGPT was born. And let me just give you a brief introduction of this early prototype tool. So what you see here now is a tool at a later stage. So I improved a lot of things by this tool. The original tool took about 3 minutes to generate a project, and it was kind of buggy. It worked in 40% of the cases. But I used this to improve it. All those errors I fixed basically, and I improved it, completely changed the approach in the meantime. And in the end, the tool just works and is pretty much reliable. I mean, I'm quite confident that this will work on the first try, whatever I'm gonna generate. So how does this work? It's a command line interface, and I can just say CDS gen. So maybe just for you to see. I'm in an empty directory. There's nothing in there. And then I can say CDS-gen, which is a shortcut for capGPT, basically. And then I can just describe whatever app I want, whatever data model I want. If you want to provide some, you can provide some. Let me just say an app with orders and order items. Each order has many items. There's also the entity product, and each item refers to a product. Doesn't really matter what you write in there. It just has to describe the data model on a semantic layer, right? Not so much technical with CDS speech or CAP speech, but rather what you want to have in the end, what your data model should look like. It also doesn't give you too much control over things, because we apply a lot of heuristics to make sure that everything works, because as you know, there are a lot of boundary conditions in the artifacts which you have to program. And if these boundary conditions are violated, then this whole app would not work. So we have to apply heuristics to make it stable, but you're completely free to describe your data model and then get the output. So let me just press enter. So now what happens is it uses the respective APIs for the LLM to generate the things to, in the end, have a CDS data model. So now the model is already finished. You can see it's relatively quick. So for the data model, it took maybe, 7 seconds or so, or even less. And now this is already finished. So not 3 minutes anymore, but a couple of seconds. So we can just inspect it, and we can look at the schema, for example. So that's the generated schema. You have our orders, order items, products, and you can see that this text which I've written, like each order item or each item refers to a product, it correctly translated this to a so-called association, which is a CAP way of defining a relationship between different entities. And yeah, this is exactly what you would need to write if you would program this by hand. And if you would have given me that and said, hey, that's something my colleague wrote, I would have totally believed it. This looks as if somebody wrote it by hand.
Yeah.
So it generates this model, and it also generates service projections. So basically a window into your entities. So the outside world can actually expose them. It graph enables them, which is one of those generic features which we support to support Fiori elements. And most importantly, and that took me a while to make this robust, it also generates so-called annotations. That is, you can annotate your data model with additional metadata for you to generate a UI. So you get an UI for free. And if you just scroll through this list, it's quite a bunch of stuff, line item annotations, if you're an expert in CAP, this, labels. So where can I show you this? Yeah, so for example here, all this whole data model consists of technical field names, but in the UI you want human readable labels, so you have to annotate your entity with labels, and that's all generated by the machine. And what I also generate, because if I would only do that, you would have a nice UI, but it wouldn't show anything because there's no data in it. What I also generate is test data. So I have here generated 3 CSV files. So orders, order items. It's not much, it's not a lot of test data, but just enough for you to actually see how this app works. And in the end, I can run it completely local in memory with an SQLite database. That's one of our principles at CAP, that it must be as easy as possible to run your applications. You don't need to set up different systems with databases and whatnot. It just has to run locally. And then you can open the app, and then you can click on Fiori Preview, and then you can see the actual UI which was generated. It's a bit boring. It doesn't have too many fields, but you can see the orders. You can click on it. You can see that this order has nice looking fields to represent the order. You can see the order items. You can also edit it, and then you can also have value helps for a product. Let's say this order item shall have a different product. Then you can click on it. and you can select another product from another entity. So this relationship is also reflected in the UI. And to do this by hand, especially the UI part with those bazillion UI annotations, is really cumbersome. And here you can really get it in a matter of a few seconds, which is really nice for prototyping. So if you have an idea of an app and you just know, how to describe the data model, you know roughly how it should behave, what features it should have, just plug it in, and a few seconds later you have the app. So that was the first prototype. Yeah.
And I think, just to remind everyone, you started from scratch, right? There was nothing. We saw in your folder there was nothing in there, and then you just entered this prompt, and with capGPT, then we got all these files created, and now this beautiful user interface. So for me, it's
we can also do it like that. Do you have some description? It's a bit spontaneous, but maybe you can think of something, like not order and order items, but maybe something else.
Maybe with the flights, that's a classical.
Okay. The S-Flight app, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so an app with flights. Right. You can describe a bit more if you want.
Model would be airplane type, number of seats.
Number of seats. You also don't have to be super precise. You can just plug it in, and the machine will
and then see what happens.
What I also like to do, because otherwise it's going to be a bit too boring, add at least 5 or let's say 10 properties. Then we can also offload this creative task to the machine, and we don't have to think of more fields. So just for you to understand that this is really not scripted or anything, you can really plug different things. So the model is done, the data is now generated, and after a few seconds we will have the UI.
While we wait for this, for me it's very obvious. I think once Jürgen Müller saw that, I'm pretty sure he was very excited and said, let's show this during Sapphire. Okay, there's a small
sometimes there are errors. This is totally fine, because errors happen. This is a non-deterministic machine. But then I just retry it, and hopefully then after a few times it will be generated.
Okay, interesting.
Sometimes it also happens, but this is super rare that for a particular data model it doesn't work, but usually it works. So let's just try it.
Okay, now we just did a retry, and interesting. Okay, yeah.
So now we can. So it's actually 2 apps it generated, one for flights, and you can see this add at least 10 properties made this a bit more impressive, I would say.
Those additional stuff he added.
So you have your flights. I can click on one of those, and you can see a lot of different properties. Now then, I think it's just this one entity. I think there's also this other entity, but you can see there should be. So I can also click on edit. You can also look at the airplane, and you can choose a different airplane. Now you can see different ones, Boeing 747. So it's all completely generated. For the date, let's use a date picker and choose maybe Wednesday. So all this completely.
So the elements are just there, which support this kind of type of property.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you also had a number of seats, and this is a property of airplane. So let's look at the airplane app. So that's basically the same app, but for airplanes. And here you should have the number of seats. 4.
By the way, for the folks that are listening, we didn't plan this, to be honest. It's really spontaneous.
It's spontaneous, yes.
Yeah.
And the data is also consistent. So let's say Boeing 747, number of seats 400. How many seats does a Boeing 747 have? Not sure how it's 660. Okay, so it's not correct, but
it's getting
close,
better.
I would say. It's close.
Really nice. Cool. Okay, so then if we continue the story again, Jürgen Müller did a demo. I think we even have a recording, or on YouTube there's also the keynote from Sapphire where Jürgen Müller demoed this scenario. So everyone was very excited, I think. And then what happened next, basically?
Yeah, what happened next is we made a product out of it, I would say. So now, so of course it was great, to have this prototype working, and also I gave it to a few of my colleagues. regularly use it by myself because whenever I have to do a presentation or something and I need a quick CAP application with a UI, I just generate one. It's a lot quicker than building it by hand. And some other colleagues also said, hey, can you give me your tool? I also would like to have this. So I gave them that. And now it's internally used at SAP, but of course, we wanted also our customers to be able to do this. And now we're going to ship it in Q1 2024, so in almost no time. And it will be part of the Business Application Studio.
Okay.
So let me show you it's not, I wouldn't say the final product, but it's pretty close. You know, that's basically what I also showed at Teched in my virtual session. So let me just open a project in the Business Application Studio, which is our web IDE. So it's an integrated development environment running in the cloud where all the tools are already installed. So you don't have to be like me and build your own extensions and build your own developer tools and download a few million things and make it all work together. No, you just get the IDE and you can basically immediately start because everything is already installed. So let me do basically the same thing. I'll zoom in. So don't worry. Don't worry.
Perfect. Thanks.
So let me just start with a completely new project. So because I think I fit it around here already. So I start with a project from template, and now there's this full stack project, which I can select. I can give it a name, Azure and SAP. I can click on finish. Now it will generate all the needed things. I think it will also perform an npm install to have everything ready. And then we can already start developing. At the beginning, it will be just an empty project with no data model. There's already there are already a few files there, but it doesn't contain anything meaningful content. So you can really start from scratch. And then I'm going to show you how it works with this, let's say, CAP-GPT style. We call it Joule. This is our assistant across SAP. It's a nice name, nice branding. And with that, you can now generate your application. So let's just give it a few seconds until it bootstrapped. It has to activate all the extensions. There are quite a lot of extensions. We also have a few tools to make it easier to orchestrate your project. We have a project board and a storyboard. You can see it in a second when it loads, where you have your data models and your services. So you can see it in a somewhat graphical way, which is nice. But it's completely empty, so there's nothing in it. So let's get started. And the first thing you want to do is you click on Joule, and it says you have to open your guide to see the possible features which we support. And you can see not only the data model and service generation, which you have basically seen before, and also the sample data generation, but also application logic and unit testing. So that's also something which we added on top, because you don't stop when you have your data model. You also want to create some logic, and I'm going to show you that in a second. But let's just first start with the data model and service. So you can click on Open Joule now. Now on the left, you can see this beautiful AI assistant, which basically tells you what it is and what it can do, and can also give you some example prompts of what you can plug in. So I would say, because I also want to generate custom logic in a second, let's stick to this order items thing, because it's a nice little one-to-many relationship. It's my favorite example. So let's just say an app with orders and order items. Each order has many order items. Let's just keep it like that. But one thing I want it to generate, because later on my business logic will depend on it, I want to have something like each order item has a price and quantity, and the order must have a field total price. Okay, because that's something which we want to calculate later. So let's just hit play. Now it basically does the same thing as before. It will generate the data model, test data. You can see it's super quick. It will also give you a little preview if this is what we wanted. So we have here orders, which has a total price. That's exactly what we wanted. And also order items. And order items has a quantity and a price. So that's exactly correct. So I click on accept. And now it will show show it in this storyboard. So you can see the data model. You have your data model, your services. You can see that orders is exposed. Order items, by the way, is exposed implicitly. So it's kind of nice. So now you can also press on this play button. So no more commands which you have to run in your terminal, which you have to remember. You just press play. It's as simple as it gets. Now it also performs an npm install to install the dependencies in your Node.js environment. And in a few seconds, you can run the application. Basically the same application you saw before. It's the Fiori Elements application with an object page. It's starting the server. It's all running in the cloud, not on your local machine. And you can see it here. And now you can click on this button, and it will open up this Fiori Elements UI, completely generated. And OK, so there doesn't seem to be data. So let's just add some data maybe and some order items. Let's see, price is 10, quantity is 5, and for the ID 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we have we enter data, so it works. The app is working, but you can see the total price is not really calculated, right? Because we haven't added business logic, and by default there's no generation of business logic, because that's usually something developers want to do manually, or at least tell exactly what business logic needs to be applied. So what we can do now is we can say, okay, we can stop the app. We can stop Joule, and we can go back to one of the guides of generative AI powered development. We just close. Can I close this? This one. So now we can, for example, say instead of, I could generate sample data. We can do that later if you want. But I can also click on application logic, and I say I want to create application logic because I want to calculate my total price. So now it says you have to first open the graphical modeler, because you have to basically bootstrap the custom logic file. So you can see here your entities, orders, and that's this total price. So I want to create now logic for my orders to calculate this total price. So I click on add logic. I can also provide a description, but I don't need this. And I want it whenever I create or update this entity, I want this to work. So now I can click on Open Code Editor. You can see you're pretty much guided towards the right things. You can click on Application Logic. And now you can basically say what you want, right? At the moment, Joule doesn't know what you want to do because you haven't provided any information of what you want to do, but you can just say, calculate the total price based on all order items, okay? Now you can press play. Now it takes a while. And now the good thing is that it uses the context of your surrounding application, in this case, the model, your data model, to generate the respective code. So here it is. And you can also see how it's done. Let's just see. Yeah, let me just accept it. And then we can inspect it in the editor. It's a bit nicer. So let me just, whenever you generate code, you always should look over it because there could be mistakes. So let me just do that. So what happens is it uses the transaction of the original request, and then it selects all items, all order items for this particular order. So this seems to be correct. I think it could also use the ID. I think that would be a bit better. So in case you can improve it, you can also say use the ID to find the right order items. So you can also give a bit more hints. So this would work fine because the ID is unique and it would be okay, but it's not the index key. So it would work. It would be a bit slower than it usually needs to be. So you can give it a few hints. It's totally fine. And yeah, then you can get the updated functions. You accept it, and now it matches it using the ID, which is better, which is a bit faster. And then it calculates the total price. So it starts at 0. It loops over all order items. And then it just adds the price times the quantity. So these fields are in your model. So it knows about the model. It knows that it has the price and the quantity field. It multiplies them and adds it to the total price, and later adds it to the data. So it looks fine. So I would say let's just run it and see if it works.
Nice.
You can see the developers, they more and more go into this role of a reviewer, code reviewer, and not so much implementer. So now let's create a new order. Put a name, 1, 2, 3. The total price, okay, I can also make it read only. That's fine. I'll do that in a second. And now let me just create a few order items. Let's say 10 and 5. So that's my first item. And let me create another item. Let's say 20 and 2. So now we have 50 plus 40. It's 90. So the total price should be 90. So let's hit create. And it doesn't work. So it's 0. Yeah, now I would need. Okay, I have an idea why it doesn't work. Yeah. Okay, I had to refresh it one more time. But now the total price is calculated.
Okay.
So I know why this happens. I can now, for example, say all order items are already part of the data property. You don't need to select them, so I can give a few more hints.
That's interesting. So you're not going in the code anymore, actually, but you're writing a prompt what needs to be fixed. That's
I don't even have to look at the code. I can just blindly accept, and whenever there's an error, then I just complain, and then it works. So now it's correct. So now this should work. And what I also want to do, because you saw that in the UI, you could actually change the total amount, which people shouldn't do. Otherwise, they would just write 0 in there. So I just make it read only. So it's also perfectly fine to modify the model. And you can just say, okay, this thing is read only. And now you can run it again. And now the UI should look better.
Cool. I mean, this is really impressive. And I definitely can see how the way a CAP developer works will completely change with this tool.
Yeah, I think it might change. Yeah, definitely. So now let's do it again. So 25 and also 10, 10. I click on create. Okay, and I have to put here this value. So we also have checks to put all the values in there. That's good. Now I click on create, and you can see it's 200. So it's 100 plus 100 is 200. So it works. And you can also see, I don't know if I showed you, but it's now read only. So you cannot change it, which is it's good. Yeah. So that's how development works in the future.
Wow.
That's really, really impressive. So and you said this is planned to be available beginning next year, in Q1 next year?
Yes. So we ship it with the so-called SAP Build Code package. And inside the Business Application Studio. So if you buy the SAP Build Code package, you will have these features. You also have to, I think, I'm not sure, but I think you also have to buy AI units. Not sure how it will be called in the end, but something like that. And then you have the possibility to also use those Gen AI features.
Yeah, all the commercials we'll leave to someone else. They can figure this out. but I think, I mean, just from a technology point of view, I think this is really, really impressive.
Thank you.
Cool.
So also credits due. So I built this data model generation part and sample data generation part. And my colleagues from the Business Application Studio, they created this custom logic generator. So I didn't do all of this.
No, but I mean that's the cool thing, the collaboration across the different teams. So that's really nice.
Yes, exactly.
Correct.
Cool. I even think there is a sign up for the preview or something like that. So at least Jürgen Müller showed a link where you could sign up for, I don't know, the public preview or something like that. I don't know if there are any commercial terms associated to it, but maybe I can also look up the registration link and make it also available in the show notes then for anyone who can sign up.
Yes, that would be nice.
I think it's a waiting list, but yeah, for anyone who's interested in this, I think that could also be nice. Well, fantastic, David. I think that was a really nice first looking back, basically. So at the early beginnings of the old early prototype, or the first blog post, and the first scenarios, and now almost to the final product. So thank you so much for sharing all of this.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
Cool. Well, then, I'm definitely looking forward to the public release in Q1, or hopefully in Q1. I think customers will be very excited about this, and maybe then sometimes in the future we can have you back on the show, maybe with some additional exciting things that you have developed for SAP that customers or developers can then really benefit from.
Sure, would be my pleasure.
Thank you so much, and yeah, talk to you again.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.